It's Clark and Perry on the case. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry
Do what it takes.
Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.
Da-na-na-na.
Hello, and welcome to the Windy City's finest. I'm Clark, he's Perry, and we are joined here today by Don Olson, who's going to show us a little bit about occupational therapy and a little bit of ceramic artistry as well, too. Don, why don't you introduce yourself while I inch over?
So again, I'm Dawn Olson, and I'm an occupational therapist by day, and I do lots of things outside of work, including pottery. So that's why I'm here.
And honestly, I've been super excited. We've talked about meeting like way early. We tried to book everybody over the course of this 14 weeks that we have for this project, and we had anticipated you here in Medicine Hat to actually be our first as well too. And well, I'm very excited to kind of sit down and actually get to meet you face to face after all those few weeks that we had you. Hopefully not dangling around all over the place. So it's very good to see you too.
Awesome.
Excellent. So we might as well just dive right into it and kind of get to know you a little bit for the sake of our viewers. So let's tell me about yourself. What would you say is probably one of your proudest moments?
Proudest moments. Ooh. You know, I have a lot of cool things that I've done in my life.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that sticks out as a highlight is I walked the Camino de Santiago in 2015. So I walked from the southwest corner of France all the way across Spain, over 1,000 kilometers.
Oh my goodness.
In 34 days.
Wow.
And so yeah, it started out as an ancient pilgrimage, and it's become lots of different things. And I did it as a sort of a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I made it to the big thing is you go to the cathedral in Santiago. It started out as like a Catholic thing, and I'm not Catholic, but arriving at that cathedral was really, really special.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of get like Europe is so amazing because like you actually get a sense like of just how old the place is.
Yeah.
I went to a trip to Greece recently as well too, and I can definitely see just why people were spiritual in being in places such as that as well too. No, that's amazing. Like 34 days. How was that? Like where do you sleep? How does that work?
Oh, it's so cool. There's like 200,000 people that do it every year.
Yeah.
And so it's like a well-oiled machine. There's these kind of like hostels. They're called albergues all along the way.
Okay.
And you have a pilgrim passport, and so you get stamps at every spot. And if you've got that passport, then you can stay in these albergues, and then it's cheap. It'll be like €8 a night, and then maybe €8 a night for like a 3-course dinner with wine.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then so you're meeting all these people, and everybody has the same goal to get to Santiago. And so it's just, you kind of like cut the small talk and can like find out really like what makes people tick, like why are you doing this and what brought you here?
Yeah.
And people are quite vulnerable, I think, in that situation too.
Yeah.
So I walked an average of 25 kilometers a day, but it's not a race. And so, get up in the morning, have breakfast, walk a couple hours, have second breakfast, coffee, walk a few hours, have lunch. It was really special.
That sounds like a lot of sightseeing too. Like you get the chance to kind of really not necessarily backpack, but you really get the sense to kind of live there, to actually be present with the people as well too.
Yeah, and you walk through a whole bunch of different areas of Spain too. So it's like almost this condensed Canada where it's mountainous. Like the first day is like the hardest day over the Pyrenees Mountains.
Oh my goodness.
And then there's an area that's like really prairie, and a lot of people kind of hit the doldrums in that area because it's flat and long. But that to me was like my favorite because it reminded me so much of home.
Yeah.
Like the long shadows and the big sunsets and sunrises and stuff. And then there's an area called Galicia that's a little more like BC. It has a bit more rain. It's more green. So yeah, really varied. All these little villages that are kind of like staying alive because of the pilgrims coming through.
Yeah.
It was cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I can imagine a bunch of stories beginning there. And I feel as well too to ask, where would you say your artistic story began?
Well, when I was a tiny little girl,
Mm-hmm.
my mom's been an artist for her whole life.
Yeah.
She actually, she was telling me just recently that when she was like 8 years old on the farm in Saskatchewan, that she found this art class in the back of a comic book and convinced her parents to like mail away for this like art thing that she got to be able to do. Like she's been an artist for her whole life. So anyway, when I was little, she was always doing art and having us do art. And I remember sponge painting things, and you know, she always encouraged us to do stuff like that. And then she started doing pottery when I was in university.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought I would like it. But it was kind of extra cool to try it with my mom being quite a skilled potter.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a blessing and a curse, because when I made junk, it was like I didn't keep any of my first junk, because most people have like their first piece, and I'm like, that's not good enough.
Yeah. Especially at the university age, you're like, it's not good enough to put up on the fridge. Dang it.
Yeah. Well, I started pottery in 2010, so I was like well out of university, but she's, you know, I remember, oh my God, the first time that I was at the pottery studio, she's like, okay, what are we making? And I was like, because I'm not that good at like taking direction. I like to try things out myself. And so I didn't want my mom to coach me. I didn't want her to, like, we don't share ideas. Like, you know, we go there together, but we're very much separate. I don't
enjoy the activity, not the product, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And enjoy the process, maybe not necessarily the product.
Exactly.
As well, too.
And I don't want to feel like I'm copying her and you know, all of that kind of stuff. So but it's pretty cool to do with my mom.
Yeah, no, and that's a fantastic way to kind of do a lot of bonding. And it sounds like you've done, well, quite a bit of experimentation throughout your life. Like you mentioned sponge painting as well, too. We've had the chance to kind of experiment in that world.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah.
What else did your mother necessarily teach you?
Like art-wise, you mean?
Yeah.
Or like how to cook and how to, no, just kidding.
Art-wise. But if there's artistry in cooking, too.
Yeah, I think my mom just always let me try things.
Mm-hmm.
Like my mom was the kind of mom that wasn't like, you know, I had rules and things like that, but it was like I had a turn to cook supper, and I could make what I wanted to make and try things. And so mostly when I was young, it was mostly kind of in the realm of painting.
Yeah.
Although I did quite enjoy sewing when I was in high school, and I remember, you know, her helping me with patterns and that kind of thing. And then, of course, I was in university and like a young adult doing my own thing for a while too. So, yeah, I got into pottery. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned you've been into pottery since 2010. Is that right? And what necessarily? So your mother kind of introduced you to it, but what keeps you around with it?
When I'm at the pottery studio, my hands are dirty. So I'm not looking at my phone. Yeah. Nobody's getting a hold of me. It is so easy to be in the flow state.
Yeah.
Like I'm there, I'm doing my thing, and suddenly, it actually happened on Saturday night. I was there and I looked up at the clock and I was like, it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like it had been 3 hours that felt like 5 minutes.
Time just melts away pretty much.
Yeah. And then it's fun to, like, it's quite a nice hobby, because like I don't do it just to sell things. I sell things because I don't have storage to keep. Like, what are you going to do with your pieces?
Exactly.
But, you know, it's sort of I don't want to use the word lucrative, but like it pays for itself if I can sell a little bit of it too. So that kind of keeps me going. I'm just like making and putting things out there, and but I'm more like, I don't like taking orders of like, you want 6 mugs of this shape and size or whatever. Like I want to make what I want to make. Yeah. And then if somebody loves it and wants it, then great.
Yeah. No. And that's a very important piece that I think we were going to discuss as well too, is that not necessarily making a business out of your art. I think that's something specifically you don't want to do. Yeah.
Like I don't want to shut the door for future, because I don't know what the future entails, but for now,
it's not something you're looking for.
Like people have often asked me like why I don't have a website or an Instagram or whatever, and it's because I have no interest in marketing myself to make more stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm really busy doing not just art, but like, you know, work and all the rest of life. And so I go there as much as I can or as much as I want to, but it's not like, I don't want it to feel like a job.
Yeah.
I want it to feel like I can get in that flow state. And I have found in the past that if I'm stressed about a piece, like say somebody like needs this Christmas present and
Sure.
I'm like working hard on it and I'm stressed and I've got a timeline and when am I going to have the kiln booked and all this stuff, like 9 times out of 10, that's the piece that's going to crack.
Yeah.
It's like it feels the energy of the stress of it all,
Yeah.
right? So
if you're stressed, the clay is going to be stressed,
Yeah.
and honestly, when you are kind of in that rushed headspace, even the layers just start to build up,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not throwing well. It's heavier than it normally would be, like all of those kind of pieces of it. So it's really nice to have it as a stress reducer rather than a stress increaser.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Stress reducer. No, that's amazing. Well, what would you say that you need more of in your life?
Time.
Time.
Yeah.
You're not the only person that has said that.
It's funny because
surprise,
I just
surprise.
said to somebody that I need more time in my life, and they were like, "Well, you're not old," and I was like, "No, I don't mean like longitudinal.
Yeah.
I mean like hours in the day." But I'm a person who I have a lot of interests, and like all of them, I'm all in. Like
Yeah.
I'm on all or nothing kind of a person.
Right.
So I've actually had to make a rule that I can't start something new unless I'm willing to give up one of my other things.
Yeah, that's important.
Because I just can't. I can't. And I have to, like, I have some sort of like seasons for things. Like I do significantly less pottery in the summer because I do a lot more tennis in the summer, and then in the winter, you know, I have to weigh it all out. So if I had more time in the day, maybe like if I wasn't working full time, then that would. I wouldn't have no problem with filling my time.
Yeah. So what is your specific season, I guess, for pottery? Just winter, fall, spring?
Yeah, well,
depends.
I can do pottery all year long.
Yeah.
And I do. Like I don't, it's not like I take months and months off. But I tend to get quite busy with it in the fall, getting ready for like the Christmas sales and Christmas season.
Yeah.
And then usually through the winter, I'm pretty gung-ho about it because I like to be busy. I like to have stuff going on. I like to, you know, go there. Like it's an easy thing to just go there and create.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the weather's nice, I'm at the tennis court.
Yeah, getting outside and soaking in the sun. Yeah, I feel a lot of people can back you up on that as well too.
Yeah,
oh, that's
but
good.
I still try to get to the studio like 1 to 2 times a week, just to kind of keep things going.
So I guess I'm going to backtrack a little bit as well too and ask, like, have you grown up here in Medicine Hat? And
yeah, I moved here when I was 4.
Okay.
My dad grew up here. And so that's what brought my parents back here. My grandparents were here and stuff. And then I lived here, graduated high school, and then I took a year of college here. Yeah. And then I took a psychology degree in Lethbridge, Windy City.
Hey, here we go.
and then I moved to Edmonton for my OT degree. And then I took my first job here because I lived with my parents and I paid off that student loan every penny.
Yeah.
And then my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, was in Calgary, although he grew up here too. But so I moved to Calgary for a little bit, and then we moved to South America for 9 months, and that was really fun.
Wow.
And then came back here again in 2007. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, quite a diverse story. But the reason I was asking primarily is that I know Medicine Hat is pretty famous for their pottery and their clay dealership as well too. Yeah. I kind of want to know what necessarily is that something that really helps feed this passion, or is that or would that not matter to you?
I think I'm really lucky to be in a place like this because there's a lot of opportunity for, like, there's artist talks and there's like Plainsman Clay that ships clay products worldwide is in Medicine Hat.
Yeah.
Like, so we're really, really lucky, and our clay community is thriving. And the club that I belong to, the Medicine Hat Potters Association, is a city subsidized club. And so we're really lucky from what I hear compared to others, even similar sized cities, because We basically pay a yearly fee, and then you have the door code 24 hours a day and just like have at her.
That's a pretty sweet deal for sure.
Yeah.
Especially because, well, we had a chance to interview a Lethbridge based ceramic artist as well too. Clay can be very expensive, I found out. So
the clay, like the clay at Plainsman, most of it is like, between 25 and $80 a box, like for 40 pounds. And a mug is like 1 pound. So
right.
I sell a mug for, not that I'm doing it to sell, but if I sell a mug for $40,
like you said, it's
and
not
then
lucrative.
I make 40 mugs out of a box.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not lucrative, but it does pay for itself at the same time.
Definitely. But yeah, Medicine Hat is a really inspiring place to be for a ceramic artist.
So you mentioned that you get really busy during the fall season as well too, getting prepared for the gifts and the presents and all that such as well too. I have to ask, what inspires your artistry? Like what, is there any signatures that you do, or is there any specific pieces that you work on?
So I am a very functionally based potter, so I like to make things that are useful. I don't tend to make a lot of decorative wall hangings or things that you can't eat from.
Right.
So I like plates, cups, bowls, mugs, those types of
works.
things. But I have a design that I have been using for a couple of years, which is sort of I'll show you sometime, but it's a really loose birch tree design.
Okay.
That's kind of like when people see that design, they know that it's mine.
Yeah.
So I definitely make a lot of that coming into the season. But I call myself kind of an ADD potter.
Yeah.
I like to try new things.
Yeah.
I like to experiment. I want to just, I don't know, I'll make this shape and then I didn't like it that much, but maybe I'll make a different shape or whatever. So
to make those new discoveries, right?
Yeah. It just keeps me thinking and trying.
So I have to ask, you mentioned the birch tree as well too. What inspired that design in particular?
I think mostly that, like, I've always been a real fan of watercolor art. I've done watercolor art, but I'm not that good because I find watercolor, the less you are perfectionist about it, the better, right? It's better if it's loose and you do these brush strokes and stuff.
Right, yeah.
And the birch design is something that I feel like I can be really loose about. And it comes out really beautiful, but it's not abstract. You can tell it's a birch tree, but it's a flow kind of a design. So when I discovered that, I really liked it because I like that there's not perfectionism in it.
Yeah.
But I also like that it's got a draw to nature, and it's a really crisp, like it's a black and white kind of a design. So
I think that's a beautiful theme that you're kind of touching on as well too, because some other perspectives that we've been able to gather talk about how pottery is very imperfect, and they really like kind of bringing that out of their artistry. In particular, our Lethbridge based ceramic artists actually will make a perfectly quote unquote shaped vase and then actually squinch it in with their with their signature fingerprints in on the pottery. I find it such an interesting idea to think about as well too, because that's not something that a lot of people are actually familiar with, that idea of actually creating something that is meant to be imperfect.
Yeah, my mom always says that you spend your first 10 years learning how to make a perfect pottery piece.
Yeah.
And then you spend the rest of your time learning how to make it look not perfect.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is it's a conundrum, right?
So
but I often say there's a beginner potter at the studio and they're having trouble or whatever, and they make something and it's a little bit wonky. I'm like, that's fantastic. If you want it perfect, you go to Walmart and buy it.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. You would just get a manufactured machine plate or bowl or something, right? Yeah.
It's got some attitude.
Yeah.
Own it.
No, that's excellent. That's excellent. So I'm kind of interested to know a little bit about the different materials of clay that you use as well too. I've been told that you're not allowed to mix clays. I didn't realize that would be
there are some clays that you can mix.
That you can mix.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens is clay shrinks when it's drying, and then as well when it's fired.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you'll like make this piece that you're like, oh, look at the size of this thing, and then it comes out of the second firing, and it's like, oh,
it's just way
it's not
smaller.
so big. But and so different formulations of clay shrink at different
Different
variability,
amounts.
right?
Oh, okay.
And so if you mix two totally different clays, then they'll shrink at different rates and it'll crack.
Oh,
but there are some clays that people do mix together. And actually, I was just talking to a member who's been doing what's called clay marbling. So it's like exactly that. Take two different clays, mix them together, throw something, and then you have this like, one of a kind type piece. I've never done any clay marbling stuff before. I like to work in porcelain. It's simple, light, feels like cream cheese, yeah.
We've had the chance, I've had the chance to throw, so I'm very excited for Dan to get the chance to throw. For those folks that are still viewing, tune in this Friday. That's what we're going to be doing pretty much for that entire
How did
day.
it go for you throwing?
Yeah, it went okay.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie. I definitely was more. I was just so interested from the process that I kind of did the hands-on at some point. Had my chance to kind of work it. It is a lot to keep in mind all at once. I could definitely tell with the practice, but practice would make perfect. But I definitely struggled with having to motor control with my foot and then pay attention to the clay and have my hands at a certain angle. And keeping them, touching and bringing it up and keeping my elbows tucked in to make sure that they don't move and wobble all over the place. It was a lot to keep track of.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. It was actually quite empowering that I was kind of like, yes, it's arise. It was very good. But no, I found it such an interesting process. And I find everybody has their own few tips and tricks to how to get it done.
It's Clark and Perry on the case. Clark and Perry. Do what it takes. Clark and Perry. Investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.